What's up, you guys? How are you guys doing? Welcome back to the channel. This is my beautiful wife, Julia, if you've never met her before. And you guys, today we are going to be talking about our best couples advice, and we're going to go into 4 different categories for this video. It's going to be honesty, intentionality, arguments, and teamwork. And these are just kind of like some broad categories that we're going to touch on, but they go so much deeper. And they're just so important in dating relationships. Julie and I are continuing to learn this, go through different seasons together with it, and we just kind of want to share with you guys what we're learning is super, super important to make sure the other person in your relationship is always feeling the most love as they possibly can. So if you guys are new here, you guys click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. Y'all, without further ado, let's dive into the video. So the first piece of advice out of the best advice for couples or best couples advice is honesty. Honesty is one of those things I feel like doesn't exist a lot in our world, and also it's kind of hard to be honest all the time in different relationships because of a lot of different reasons. It could be because you've always taken care of yourself and you never like telling other people how you feel. It could be because you've had trouble trusting people in the past and so you haven't been honest with that many people. But today we're going to talk about the importance of being honest in a relationship.
Yeah, honesty, I think it boils down to like trust. And if you can't be honest, then obviously you can't trust each other. And we trust each other's lives into each other's hands. Like every day we trust each other's well-being, our emotions, just everything. And knowing that that other person is being honest with you is something that can help build that trust in your relationship. That's really important. And dishonesty is something that can really cause division within your relationship. And so let's say there was something that happened and maybe I knew, but like Jacob lied to me about it, and this is a hypothetical situation, but that would cause me to have a hard time trusting him. And that would make things harder for our relationship because building trust once it's lost is a hard thing to do. And so that's why it's so important to be honest within your relationship, because even though maybe confessing to something or saying something is hard, it's a lot worse when you're dishonest, because the truth will set you free and the truth will come out inevitably most of the time.
And yeah, I would even build off of that. Like, for people here watching this who find it hard to trust people, like you've found it hard to trust people in your past, and so maybe you keep things to yourself because you don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings, or you think it's best to just keep it to yourself because it's really not that big of a deal. You know, it might not even be keeping something from your significant other. To all the dating couples and married couples out there, it could be just because, oh, I don't want to have to burden this person with what I'm struggling with, or I just don't feel loved, or I don't feel like I'm getting any help. You know, whatever the situation might be, the best thing about being a couple and having a relationship is you can actually rely on that person for that. And that is part of what getting into a relationship is all about. When you guys get into a relationship, you guys are now a team. And so the burdens and the things that you struggle with, you can share that with your significant other, and you should feel safe and secure in sharing that with your significant other, because at the end of the day, they want to care for you. I mean, that should be the goal, is that your significant other would want to care for you. They would want to help you through whatever you're struggling with. And it might even just be the one thing that you just feel like it's hard to share. Like, oh man, my mind has just been so jambled lately and I'm in this slump and I don't know why. You know, sometimes it can be hard to admit that, but those are even just important things to admit so that you can find help from your significant other, or if they can't help you, you can get help somewhere else with that. So honesty on a grander scale, it might not even just be like honesty in terms of, oh, I did something and I don't want to tell my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my wife, my husband, whatever it is. It's also just like being honest with your emotions, being honest with your feelings, with life circumstances, with, you know, so many different things, your finances, your emotions, everything, because at the end of the day, you guys are a team. And so it's just very important to be honest in those situations. And you'll find too, the more you are honest with one another, the more your relationship is just going to thrive, because you guys are on the same page at all times. You don't have to worry about not trusting somebody because they're bringing everything to you. But then also you don't have to worry about like, oh, I don't really know if they love me. Do they actually love me? Do they actually care about me? Well, if you guys are honest, you guys will know those things about one another. So.
And it's okay to have boundaries. Like, it's different for a dating couple versus a married couple, or even an engaged couple. Like, if you guys have only been dating a couple of days, like a couple of months, like maybe there are some things that you wait to share, but it's never a good thing to lie or intentionally hide something that it might benefit that person to know. Those are things that need to be brought to light, because maybe it's okay that you're feeling that way, but hiding it and not being truthful can be really hurtful in the future. So just know your boundaries and know your relationship and what stage you're truly at.
Yeah, and I think that leads us into our next piece of relationship advice we can give, and that's intentionality. Intentionality begins from the moment you start pursuing somebody to literally until you guys end up getting married, and for the rest of your life that you're married to that person. Intentionality at the beginning of a relationship or at the beginning of pursuing somebody is so important. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're just getting ready to start dating someone. Intentionality in what you expect from the relationship. Intentionality in bringing up past problems that you've had or experiences that you had that you don't want to experience, but you're sharing that with your significant other. Intentionality in terms of, this is where I want the relationship to go. I am dating for marriage. As a Christian couple, and kind of Julia and I's story, I wanted to date somebody who was going to be dating for marriage. Like, that is the season I was ready for, and that's how I believe dating should take place, is like, if you're going to date somebody, you're going to date them for marriage because you find the qualities in them that resemble what you would want to find in a wife. And so even just having that conversation, intentionality, and what are your intentions behind dating me? What are your intentions behind pursuing me? And then also, how can I be intentional in my relationship to love that person, to care for that person, to check in with that person? That's one thing, like, we're learning all the time. Like, literally, so we were shopping yesterday, Julia and I were, and Julia, eyed the flower section, and she's been telling me to buy her flowers for a while, and I just haven't. I just haven't bought her flowers in a while. And anyways, yesterday we were at the store, and she eyed the flower section, and I bought her these flowers, which she was happy about, right? Mm-hmm. And then I also bought her these Reese's peanut butter cups, which she's already dug into.
I've eaten some of them.
But the point behind that is, we're even learning this to this day. Something that Julia wants me to be more intentional with is, doing those little small surprises and small gifts and things like that. And we would be lying to you if we said our relationship is perfect. That's an intentional way that I can help make her feel loved better, is surprising her with the flowers. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm out at the store, I'm thinking of Julia, let me get her flowers and surprise her. And me knowing that means so much to her because she's made an effort to let me know it means a lot to her. I mean, she has. That's going to make her feel loved. And so that's even just an example of small intentional things that you can do for someone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's probably honestly easiest to be intentional at the beginning of the relationship because it's new, it's fresh, it's exciting, and it is important. Intentionality is intentions. What are their intentions? And so, yeah, you're hopefully intending on dating for marriage. That's the bucket we're putting this in. But intentionality goes so much deeper than that, and it can be easy to grow complacent in your relationship. And I have heard this from so many couples. It's okay, well, we're here. For us, we're married, we're living together, we're doing married couple stuff, life, well, why do we need to keep dating each other? Well, that's because, if you want a long, happy marriage where the two people still love each other and, love being with each other, you have to keep it fresh. And so that's why it's so important to be intentional with the way you love each other and not just assume that your marriage, the covenant, is gonna keep that flame alive. Yeah. Because yes, of course, we have that covenant with God that we're gonna be married, but we want to keep that spark alive in our relationship too. And so that's our advice. Even when you're dating, I think even couples who are dating can get out of that flow of why go on a date? And so having that intentionality is important. It looks different for everyone. You need to have those open conversations and be okay, how can I make you feel the most loved? How am I lacking? What are things that I'm doing that is making you feel maybe not as secure or not as valued? Because I am so lucky that I am married to Jacob and he chose me. But if I'm not showing him that, he might just feel like a disposable part of my life.
And vice versa,
I don't want
too.
him to feel that way.
And vice versa too. And these are just things we're learning to share with you guys. We can get caught up so much in the busyness of life and work and summer and everything that it's why don't we go out anymore? Why don't we do this? And it's important to be intentional. Set aside time to do that. Set aside time to do the nice surprise for your significant other. Set aside time to check in and say, hey, how are you doing? How can I love you better this week? What was a way I didn't love you well this week? Mm-hmm. What is a way I can care for you better? Just asking each other those questions. And honestly, I think that's something Julia and I are going to start doing every week, and I think is important. And somebody brought up to me a month ago, was hey, at the end of every week, let's have a meeting. How did I love you well this week? What's the way I can love you better? What's the way I didn't love you well enough? How can I be more intentional with you? How can I care for you? How are you doing? And just asking those types of questions and going through these things are what's going to keep a spark in a relationship and keep your guys' love for one another growing and growing and growing. And at some point, like too, like this intentionality, like yes, it might be a little bit out of your comfort zone to go ahead and do that, but if you actually love somebody and you really truly do love them and want them to be feeling loved and feel secure in the relationship, you know, those things will become so easy for you. They'll become, it won't even be a habit. It'll be like, I want to do this. And I think a lack of that can lead to distrust, dishonesty, and that kind of leads us into our next pillar in our best relationship advice piece of information we want to touch on, and that is arguments. You know, how do we navigate arguments? How do we clear tension that's in the air if we lack intentionality, if we lack honesty? So why don't you start that one off?
Yeah, I mean, arguments are gonna happen. Like, if you think that you won't have any, you have a perfect relationship and those don't exist. So there is something, you know, going on there. But arguments are gonna happen and it's all about how you handle them. I've heard someone say it's like, it isn't a win if you win the argument, but you like destroy the other person's feelings in the process. Because we've had to talk about this a lot. Like, it isn't about winning the argument. It isn't necessarily even about being right. Like, if you're right, maybe the other person thinks they're right. Like, if you guys are arguing to the point to where the other person's feelings don't even matter anymore, like, that can lead to like so much hurt and tension in your relationship. And so this kind of touches on the fourth point that we have is teamwork, as well as like, you have to view your relationship, you guys are a team, it's you guys against the problem. The problem isn't your relationship. Whatever you're arguing about is the problem. And so that can't come in and divide. And it's also a spiritual thing too. Like, the devil will try to disrupt something good that God is doing in your life. And so maybe that is an argument. Maybe he's getting you to focus on something that is going to tear you guys apart. And when in that time, you really need to be strong together. And so, yeah, I think it's just valuing the other person's opinion, valuing them, knowing what God says about them. It's really easy to be like, oh my gosh, I really don't like you right now. But then thinking about God's heart for that person is like, God loves them so much. I love them so much. So why am I treating them this way? Even though I'm so mad at them right now. Like, it's easy to look back and be like, oh, but I love them so much.
Yeah, and like the Bible gives us perfect outline. It's like, be quick to listen, slow to anger, slow to speak. And so it's like, in those situations where there is an argument or there's a disagreement or there's a discussion, it's like, how can we go about these in the best ways possible? Well, you know, it looks like being quick to listen, slow to anger, slow to speak. And a lot of times it might be hard to be slow to anger, you know, and it might be hard to slow to speak, but it's going to take intentionality and honesty and being able to say, okay, I know this is going to be hard for me to be slow to anger, slow to speak, but I'm going to sit, I'm going to listen, I'm going to hear their side out. But then also it comes into, in these arguments, okay, be intentional in the conversation. Be honest in the conversation. If there's an argument and somebody legitimately did something wrong in that situation, be honest. You know, take complete ownership of that and say, you know what, I am sorry for, you know, whatever it might have been, and apologize in that circumstance. But I think arguments are bound to happen. It's going to happen. No marriage is absolutely perfect, but there is a way to navigate arguments, and there's a way to kind of diffuse the situation in terms of just how much tension and how much anger there can be in those types of situations. And we're learning that. Again, Julia said, you know, in marriage, you're a team. It's not just a me versus you thing. It's an us thing. It's an us against the problem. It's not me versus you. And so that's another really important place to come to when you might be in a disagreement or an argument with your significant other or your spouse, and you're trying to figure out how to navigate it. How do I bring this up to them if I know they're going to get upset? And it's, again, look at these principles. It's honesty. It's intentionality. You know, it's having all of these things in arguments and knowing how to navigate arguments, being honest in those arguments, and just really tag teaming against the problem as a team, as an us, and as a unit, so that the problem doesn't get the best of you two, but you guys can resolve the problem and eliminate the problem, so that hopefully in the future, you know, you guys won't have arguments over the same issues, but also you'll be able to handle those arguments and disagreements a lot better.
Yeah, and this is something I heard someone talk about in a podcast, and the way they worded it was interesting. It was like, this is more for the married couples and people in really serious dating relationships. Like, you spend so much time with that other person, you trust them, you know, with your heart and whatnot. They're like your mirror in a way. Like, if Jacob was to come to me and be like, hey, like, what you just said was so, like, that was like a bad look, and I know, like, you maybe didn't mean it that way, but this is how it came across. And if my first instinct is to get defensive and be like, what, you don't know what you're talking about, no, that's stupid. Like, I am forgetting the fact that he sees me probably more than I even see myself. He is with me all the time. And so I have to trust his opinion in that aspect because he's only telling me that to help me be better. And so you have to trust the other person because you are a team. Trust that when they come to you in a humble way, I'm not talking about in a demeaning way, but in a humble way saying, hey, like, this is something I've noticed. Allow them to be your mirror in that and be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm around you all the time. You would notice something like that. Thank you for bringing that up. Like, I'll definitely try to be better at that.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to touch on with the arguments is, like, I think it's okay to own up to when we're wrong. Like, being willing to take the hit. It's not, I think it's okay. I know it's okay. And you should be willing to own up to when you're wrong and when you've done something wrong, or when you notice, you know what, I shouldn't have reacted in this way. I shouldn't have spoke to you this way. Taking time to break those things apart of, oh, I shouldn't have spoke to you this way. I shouldn't have reacted in this way. I shouldn't have caused this problem. I caused the problem here, and I'm sorry. We need to figure out the root of this and break it apart. Owning up to those things is super, super, super important. It's not about our ego. It's not about how we feel, even though sometimes we might feel, oh, our actions were justifiable. We're justified to think this way. It's like, come on, let's break down these walls and these barriers, this pride and this non-humility that we have. Let's just break down the walls of that, and let's just get to, hey, what does it look like to be a loving husband, a loving wife, a serving wife, or loving and serving boyfriend and girlfriend, and get to the bottom of these things, because it's going to make us stronger as a whole. And that leads us into our final kind of pillar for our best couples dating advice, marriage advice, and that is teamwork. Teamwork is so important. Again, we said this earlier, but it's not against one another in arguments. It's not, oh, I'm better than you. It's not me versus you. Teamwork in a relationship, in a marriage, anything, it is so important. Just like in sports, teamwork is super important to win the game, right? Just like as believers, coming together as believers, as the global church on one accord is so important to actually walk out our faith every single day, because Satan is going to tempt us, right? We're called to be surrounded by like-minded believers. As iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. That's the same for your marriage. Like, teamwork is so important. In your marriage, you should sharpen one another spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. And so having teamwork and having that principle set in place of, hey, we are a team. We're going to tackle this together. We're going to follow the Lord together. Having the mindset of being a team. And that's the beautiful thing, too, about following Jesus. You are a man and a woman of God. You are a child of God. You are brothers and sisters in Christ. And so you already know, you guys are already fighting on the same battlefield. So now it's like, how do we take that teamwork to a whole new level of, okay, how do we make this the healthiest marriage we can? But then not only from there, once you guys are able to have a healthy marriage and navigate your problems as a team, how as a team can you serve one another healthfully? How can you serve one another spiritually? How can you, something that I think we're going to be super passionate about in a couple of years when we're ready for it is, hey, let's counsel other married couples and teach them how, we went through certain things and it was tough, but this is what we've learned as a team. That's just something we're passionate. And I think too, even like speaking to you guys, we do this as a team because we're passionate about this. We know people struggle with these things. They don't know the answer to these questions, and they just want somebody who relates to them to sit down and talk about it. And that's what we feel like we're able to do as a team.
Yeah, I definitely think you touched on this a little bit. There's definitely zero room for pride in your relationship. And if you think like that pride is going to get you anywhere, it will not, other than failure. Like, if either one of us has pride, it's just going to break us apart. And I hear it said a lot, it's like, a relationship isn't 50-50. You both have to be putting 100% of effort in. But I don't agree with that, because of the fact I know I can't put 100% in all the time. I know you can't put 100% in all the time. Like, something was traumatic to happen in my family. Like, Jacob would have to bear some weight for a little while. But that's what it's about, being a team. Being able to carry one another when I can only give 20%. And so Jacob has to take the rest on and say, hey, I'm here for you. I'm with you. Like, you don't have to be strong right now. And same the other way around. Like, when he's down, I can be the one to say, hey, I'm here for you. Like, let's get through this. With a spiritual thing, let's say one of us is having a hard time trusting God. In that moment, the other person is their accountability in that, saying, hey, you know what? Like, God has a plan for this. I understand it's hard, and I understand you're having a hard time trusting, but listen, this is how we're going to get through it. God's going to get us through it. And so remembering that is so important. Like, you can depend on one another. You don't have to be strong all the time. That's what a partnership is. That's what teamwork is. And I mean, I've heard so many people say it. We don't have kids, so we don't know exactly. But I've heard a lot of people say, well, you know what? Delegation is something that saved our marriage because we had our jobs and we stuck to them. And we do this now with just like our dog and different household stuff.
Chores.
We know our jobs. We do our jobs.
And when we don't, we'll remind each other, you know, that type of thing. And
exactly.
Yeah, and I was going to say, too, for Julia, what she was saying, you know, like, oh, sometimes I can only give 20%. In those times, that I would honestly say, though, like, that's her 100%. Because she's just in this mental place, it's like, I can only give 20% of what I'm normally giving, but this is, like, it's not like they're still not giving their all in those circumstances.
Right.
Like, let's say something terrible happened to me, and I'm just like, I know this is like, I'm giving you all I can, but I know this doesn't feel like 100%. It's because I'm in this weird cycle right now, you know, or, you know, something terrible happened to Julia's family and she's just, you know, upset over it or whatever. I know she's going to still give me as much as she can, but it might not seem like that 100% she normally gives me. You know, you just have to keep that in mind. Most of the time, somebody's gonna, you know, in our relationship, she's gonna give me all she can. But there's gonna be times where she can't give me as much as she normally can. And so that's when I have to step in, or she would have to step in.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, kind of compensate there. But that is our best couples advice in terms of just like the grand scope of relationships, dating relationships, marriage relationships, whatever it is. And I honestly think a lot of these things hit both of those types of relationships. Like, yes, you might not do as many of these things in a dating relationship as you do in a marriage relationship or a married relationship, but they're important to instill in both types of relationships, because if you're dating for marriage, which we believe, you know, you should be, it's important to instill that right away so that your marriage can flourish in a very healthy way, in all aspects, you know, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so the honesty, the intentionality, the argument aspect, and then the teamwork aspect, these are all important things that we just kind of broke down and discussed. You know, we encourage you, talk to your partner about this, whether you're a dating couple or a married couple. You know, it might be your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife. Talk to them about these things. Break down some of these things. And we hope a lot of the advice that we give you can help solve some of the problems that you guys might be facing in a dating or married relationship. And these are things we're learning day by day and we're growing with, and we just want to share it with you guys. So.
And yeah, we are nowhere near perfect at any of this, and you know, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, well, we know we know what to do, but sometimes we fail at that, and so this was even good for us, just a reminder of things.
We needed to make this video.
And
just because we struggle with these things. Like, that's how we learn. That's how we grow.
Yeah. So don't think like, oh, well, you guys have the perfect relationship, so you wouldn't understand. Like, no, we definitely do not. We definitely struggle, and so knowing that, we want to share that with others so that you guys can be helped by it too. So
yeah. Anyways, you guys, we love you guys. I hope you guys learned something, took something from this video. If you guys are new, guys, subscribe to the channel, leave a like on this video, comment down below if this helped you, what your favorite part was, or what you might want to see next. But you guys, we really hope our best couples advice that we could give to you guys is going to help you in either your dating or marriage relationship, in pursuing somebody, and in having the healthiest relationship possible on all scales: emotional, physical, spiritual, mental, everywhere. And that you guys can really grow and learn from this video. So we love you guys. We hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and we will see you guys in the next one. Bye.